Hi, and welcome to Acting is Everything. I focus on film and television acting and casting and typing, T-Y-P-I-N-G, which means image. And there's a few characters that each actor can play, and so much of it is based on what you look like and what you're perceived as. And I have with me for this show the guru of image and typing for actors. And he's featured in Acting is Everything, the book that I write for actors, and there's an interview in there with him, and I thought it'd be wonderful to have him with me so we can really pinpoint on what this type and image is about. So, welcome, Sam Christensen.
Thank you very
Yay.
much. Glad to be here.
Oh gosh, you've been teaching this, you've been on the cutting edge of this for 20, 25?
I just had my 40th anniversary in show business.
Oh my gosh.
I started when I was 2, of course.
Well, of course. And you developed this process and what you do over, tell me how you developed it and why, and let's just get started, jump right in.
Well, my past is a little checkered in terms, I've always worked with actors, all of the years I've been in show business, and a good deal of it was spent as a casting director and then as a manager. And in both of those walks of life, working very directly with actors that I believed were great. I early on had a wonderful opportunity, a lucky break in my own life, and I worked on a show called MASH for many years. And that, you know, there were so many young actors brought in as the young GIs and the young nurses, and I would watch those people succeed, get parts or not. And then later as a manager, of course, then I had clients that I wanted to make sure worked. And I kept running up against a particular challenge because on the callback level on the shows that I cast, everybody was good and castable, obviously, and when I represented actors, I tried to represent the very best craftspeople I could, of course, and very often casting would come down to not a question of their acting skills at all, but it would come down to a question of how much they were themselves in addition to what they had to do in the part. And they would get that criticism or recommendation of, gee, do that again. What you did was great. This time, just be yourself. And I would see actors' face go total like, what the heck does that mean?
Right.
And so at a certain point in my life, when I had kind of tired of negotiational show business, making deals and doing all of that, I was sort of done with that, and I decided I wanted to teach and present more. At that moment, I decided I wanted to solve this problem. What does that mean when somebody says be yourself? And how do actors personalize and then create all the materials, the photographs, the things that capture not just how they look, but a sort of humanity that they have, and then how do they make sure they deliver that in audition and interview formats so that directors, the people that want to cast them, are not only seeing their skills, but seeing the unique thing that that person brings along with their skills. You know, just the way that Robert De Niro and Jack Nicholson are both great actors. We know that. They're great actors, but they're very different human beings. And what they bring to each part and what we come to expect and what we want from them is the Jack Nicholson-ness of Jack Nicholson, as well as the fact that he's a great actor. So I wanted to help actors find that, and over time a system developed, a literal system that I do in workshops to help people identify what that is.
Well, many actors that I talk to say, well, I want to play all the roles. I want to, all the roles that, you know, are my age, or even I can age up, or I can be younger, and I can, what's wrong with that?
Well, I don't think anything is wrong with that basic desire to create as many characters and be as many things as possible. I mean, that's the basis of the art form. But of course, there are limitations by gender, by race, by type. And I think what an actor has to do is be cognizant of those things, that there are certain limitations that just come with our physicality, etc. But what's more important than that is within the type ranges that one plays, which of them am I? If I play poetic grad students, you know, there's something youthful and intellectual about me, and so I get cast in those kinds of things. The issue is not so much what types do I play, those are fairly obvious, it's who am I within that type. In the callback level, obviously, everybody's going to be the right type. You know, it's ultimately then, for the director, what else do I get besides the fact that they fit that type range? What else do I get? And I think as actors allow themselves to get more and more into, there are things that I can do within the type ranges that I fit. There are things that I can do that are signature. Only I can do these types the way I do them. And then pretty soon we get that individual kind of performance that causes people to be called in not just for the types they fit, but for who they are within those type ranges. That's what I work on. And as people begin to find that out, then this desire to be everything, do all parts, people become kind of satisfied with the ranges they're in because it's no longer a limitation. They can now fill up those types that they fit with so much signature work themselves that it becomes special, and they no longer feel that, well, I want to do this and I could stretch to that and give me a wig and I could look like this and all that stuff that drives people crazy. And then when agents or managers or casting people say, no, we see you this way, people always feel, instead, I want them to feel, I don't really care what boxes you put me in. I can fill that box up in a way that nobody else can. Myself, my identity is unique and special, and it has that signature to it.
Well, it sounds like you're talking about self-discovery and knowing yourself more and more. Some people find that difficult.
Well, this is the little magical thing that I found out about it, because of course there's always elements of growth and self-discovery that we all go through, even non-actors, non-artists, that's part of the human experience. But one of the things that I discovered for actors, and actually for others, because I end up working with a lot of people who aren't actors as well, one of the things that I've discovered is that while there is this element of self-discovery and growth and acceptance that goes on for all of us, there is also this recognition that we're perceived in the world. And because we are inside of an experience, we're on the interior of our self. When somebody else says to you, just be yourself, they're talking about this outside picture that they have of you. So the work I do, the first half of the work I do, is spent on going, okay, what's going on out there? What do people get from me when I walk in a door? What sort of aspects do they recognize on me? What are the sort of the behavioral cards that creation dealt to me? And when people do this, the first part of the process that I do, there's always this sense of sort of amazement. They go, there's some surprises. They'll go, wow, I had no idea that people got that or that. And then there's sometimes the unwelcome things where they go, oh, people are getting that from me. I went to therapy to fix that. How come they're getting that? You know, but they're aware. And then there's all the things that they could predict and they know people are getting, but they get sure of that. And a tremendous thing happens in the first half of the process that I do, where people begin to go, oh, this is the stuff that's working for me. This is the stuff that's out there. Yeah, maybe I'd change something if I could, but that isn't the issue. The issue is, these are the things, the elements, the human things that folks get from me. Knowing that, then all of a sudden my self-discovery, my skills as an actor, what I can turn up, what I can turn down, how I play these cards that I've been dealt, suddenly becomes the issue rather than changing things or more. But how do I work with these elements that I have?
Well, you just talked about a young intellectual grad student, and how, so what other, because that sounds like a very specific type. When you said that, I could see like a young Richard Dreyfuss or what was that? The Wonder Boys, or Wonder, no, it was that one with Michael Douglas, and where he was the professor, and there was a great actor in there who was one of his students. wasn't John Cusack. Well, anyway, I could absolutely see the movie right off the bat and see those people playing who were his. He was the professor. What other kind of definitions for types for our audience? So when they're watching, they say, "Well, what is a type? What would be something?"
Well, there are a lot, you know, like for instance, there's a TV show on that you and I have talked about that we enjoy called Mad Men, a new television show. And, you know, it's set a very particular time in American history, but there are lots of types. There's this wonderful actor named John Hamm who plays the leader, the lead in it, and you know he's the successful, smart, a little better than everybody kind of guy. And then there are 6 or 8 guys within the ad agency, and you know one of them is kind of the nerd, and one is kind of the plotting, ambitious one, and they're all wonderful, wonderful actors. And then there are women who occupy various things. There's the dutiful suburban housewife, and there's the kind of scheming secretary within the structure of the place, and then there's the young secretary who's all hard work but secretly ambitious, and there are all these different, you know, character types within that. And then because Matthew Weiner, the guy who created it, has done a wonderful job of casting these people, not only are these people sort of physically the fits for these types. Like there's one very young, and I wish I could remember his name, but there's one very kind of plotting, young, ambitious guy who's kind of cheating and fooling around, and he's just gotten married, and you know he's a wonderful young actor. And you know, that's a certain type. He's a little kind of scrawny, and he has that look in his eye and all. But this particular actor within that has also signed off on a way that he does it and personal pieces that he brings to it. And I think that's what makes it fun for him. We all have these type ranges. You know, for example, I've known you for a long time, and you have moved through type ranges because we all do that. We all grow a little older, and those type ranges change. And yet, there are certain things that you played at 30 that you are just playing the 50-year-old version of, you know, as time moves on. Those things, I think we all recognize those. I don't think actors really have they may have a problem feeling limited to types, but they ultimately know that agents add them to the list because they fit a certain type range. They're submitted because they fit certain descriptions that come in the breakdown. And then the issue is not so much, people learn those type boxes. It's not hard to figure them out. What happens though is then on that callback level, they're sitting there with 6 or 8 people who also fit that just perfectly. And then the issue becomes, what do I do to win this part? Is it the best actor who's going to get it? Well, I'm sitting here with 4 or 5 other people that went through the auditions that I went through. They're probably pretty good too. Is that my job? I have to work and work and work to be the best actor? And then we go to acting class and we notice we're in class with a lot of really good actors. Then the issue becomes, there are things that I can do that have nothing to do with my skills. They have to do with the kind of person I am, the ways that I am. And it becomes this balancing act of what I do, my skills, the roles that I fit, and then who I am. These things that nature gave me and my genetics gave me and my background gave me that make me different. I suspect you go to some auditions where you're sitting with women you've sat with for 30 years. The same women.
Absolutely. Oh,
and
hi.
Hi, exactly. And you got that one and I got this one, and weren't we both up for that one, and she got it, and you know, there of course is that. And yet, you're a different human being than the next one, and you may look alike, you're in the same age range, you're always in for the same types, and yet Judy brings a slightly different thing to it than Penelope does, and that's what the director needs to see in that callback room, and that's what I work on, is making sure that we haven't sublimated those unique individual pieces that make us up to just serving the type.
Yes, and see,
you know how to be the elder stateswoman executive lady. How many times have you gone in to read for that? You know, at this point, how many? But the way Judy does that, the particular things that Judy has in her personality and brings to that, are what the director is looking for. In callbacks, the director is seeing all people who fit. What do I get if I hire you versus Penelope versus Louise, you know, and what suits me today and suits this particular group of people that I'm putting together in the whole of the cast.
Now, how does an actor give up, though, gee, I want to bring what they want. What do they want?
Well,
I want to do
that's
that.
The biggest struggle. It's the biggest single struggle that I think human beings have. You know, we're so raised for grades, for approval, for getting it right. And what I say to the actors I work with is, what you're assuming there is that they know exactly what they want, that there's some perfect version of it. And I was on the casting side of it for 20 years, and I can tell you, they don't know what they want. They know what's in the script. They know what the part demands, but they're waiting to see what each actor adds to that. What more do I get when you read it than a good rendition of the part? I expect you to do that. What more do I get from you than that? What more do I get from Judy because you're Judy? And that's what the final process of casting is rarely about skills. It's about, well, you know, she's got this little kind of smarty pants twist to her that I think's really great, and that really brings something out in this part, and suddenly the part has jumped off the page because it's gotten invested with the humanity of the person playing it, not just what the writer put there, but this extra dose of what only actors can do. Only actors can bring that, can bring the moment and themselves. That's why, you know, otherwise we'd have wind-up robots doing it.
Right.
They'd all be perfect.
Right.
The robots would do perfectly what they were programmed to do.
And it's so uninteresting.
It's so uninteresting. And all of a sudden, you see these people. For instance, I know you've been watching Californication.
Yes.
We've been talking about that. And you know, to see what
Oh my
David
gosh.
Duchovny is found to bring of himself to this role, and a lot of guys could play that role. But the Duchovny-ness that he's bringing there is a big aspect of what it is that's fun to watch about that
really
show.
is.
You know, anybody could play this sort of randy, semi-successful, writer-blocked. It's a character. The writer has done great jobs creating a character. But then he adds this extra piece to it that's him and just makes it alive and watchable and interesting. And it's so easy to get stuck in that thing that you just suggested. If there's a right way and I want to do what they want, you have to know that what they want is what you're going to add that they couldn't predict, that comes particularly from who you are.
And that's your uniqueness.
It's your uniqueness.
No one else has
Nobody.
Who we are inside and
Can't happen.
our experience and our. Now, what if you want to? What if you're just a sweet, lovable person, and you have a persona? You look like someone who would be crafty and play the bad person, which is not in your heart of hearts who you are. How do you do that? How do you?
I truly believe that we all have all of that in us. Certainly, each of our lives leans us in certain ways and more. But the sweetest person in the world has had some mean, crafty, it's somewhere in there. And I think the big secret of bringing that out is this whole idea of what is it that people get about me, and then what is the extreme of that? If for example, I would suspect that, you know, what the first half of our process would yield when you're there is you'd get words like outgoing and friendly and personable. You get a lot of that kind of description. All right, what happens if we go to the extreme evil of outgoing, let's say? Well, all of a sudden words like manipulative come up. And you go, oh, now that isn't how I live my life with my outgoingness. On the other hand, as an actor, if I want to turn that outgoing all the way up to overpowering, overwhelming, all of a sudden, this thing that operates in my life is kind of a nice, wonderful quality, suddenly gets a tinge to it because I know what the thing is that people recognize in me, and now I know what to turn up to an extreme so that I can be believably evil. You could play an evil, manipulative, political woman by just turning this outgoing stuff all the way up to overwhelming, and I will influence you. And all of a sudden, you know, something that's one of your wonderful qualities gets an adjustment upward.
I like that.
Otherwise, you're pretending to be an evil, ambitious woman. But if you take some quality of yourself and turn it up, where it's probably been at some moment in your life or some,
maybe,
you know, in your,
yes.
But you know, it's it's possible because it's a reality
Right.
that you're turning up rather than just pretending to be the cartoon of what other actresses you've seen, you know.
Right.
That's why I can just tell you on the callback level, especially over the years of doing MASH and understanding those scripts and all of that, it was so easy to see when an actor they were doing what they thought would come off as what the part seemed to demand, as opposed to when they would take some element of themselves and lean it in. Those were always the people that got cast, were people who somehow personalized the aspects needed and used elements of themselves to get there rather than just did a really crafty imitation of whatever was required.
Let's say that someone is watching this in South Dakota, and they live in a small town and obviously have cable TV,
Yeah.
but they maybe are taking an acting class somewhere or something, and are thinking they want to act, and they're wondering, what type am I? Is there a way that they can, how can they figure out what type they'll play?
Well, I think it's a fun little exercise to have with friends and with people. Just ask other folks. If you saw me on the street, what would you guess that I did? If you saw me in 7-Eleven buying a soda, what would you guess that I did? Would you think I was married? What educational level? Would you just guess? And when people kind of play that game in whatever place they live, and they ask folks just to give them descriptive information, not evaluations, but descriptions. What do you think my ethnic background is? What level of school do you think I reached? And they ask both, especially people that are unacquainted with them. If they can just get folks to play that game with them, pretty soon they'll see a consensus and they'll begin to go, isn't it interesting? I happen to have only gone to high school, but when I ask most people, they think I've gone to college. I haven't, or maybe I have, but people, you know, the majority of people say that. And it's just a little game. It's really part of what I do in the first part of this training, because we never think to ask. Another resource for us is in the things that people have written down about us. You know, people write in our annuals. They write things in birthday cards. They write things in books they give us. And when you just look at the descriptive part of it, you know, you begin to go, oh, there's some feelings that keep showing up when people lean into describing me. Right. And you begin to see some trends that help you figure out some about type, but also about which one are you within the type, which is what I think is more important. You know, if you play college-educated people, which college-educated person? What kind of college-education person are you, right, as opposed to someone else? So there's a lot of that personal information available to us sitting on our bookshelves or in our memento drawer or wherever, that people have been describing us all our lives, and we're taught not to pay attention to it. It's actually information that's right there that can help you figure out what is it that people get from me.
Now, I know that people, because you've been teaching so long, and people come back to you over and over through the years. Why do they, I mean, once they figure themselves out, why do they keep coming? I know a lot of them keep coming back and sharing their great successes and such.
But they also come back to make sure, because such incredible things happen in our lives. We get married, we graduate, we have children, we have grandchildren, and those things are hugely life-changing. By the same token, we're the same, you know, person. I suspect the things that were written in your kindergarten report card are probably some of the same things your friends would say about you today.
I talk too much.
Okay, good. See, and what's interesting is people come back just to make sure. Life has really changed, or, you know, when I was here before, I was struggling to get auditions, and since then I've been on 2 series and in 3 movies, and so life's totally different. It is. And yet, what they really come back to check in is, in certain ways, I'm exactly the same person. I'm a little more successful, or I'm married now, or I have children now, but I'm not a different human being. All my circumstances have changed. And they come back to check in about that. It's a really
Now, when
thing.
those circumstances do change, do they change their focus, or they just get reassurance that, no, you're still the same person doing that?
I'll tell you the example I always give is Katharine Hepburn, because we all, you know, watched that career. And when Katharine Hepburn had her first big major success in Philadelphia Story and in the movies, they wrote, you know, what an interesting young actress she was, so feisty. And then 60 years later, she made her final television movie with Ryan O'Neal, and they wrote about Katharine Hepburn. She was wonderful as this octogenarian, so crusty. Well, crusty and feisty are just a tone change of the same basic thing about Katharine Hepburn, which is I take no crap from men. You know, they called it feisty when she was 28. They called it crusty when she was 78. But it's that same thing about her had not changed. And that's, I think, what happens with all the circumstances. The tone changes a little as we move through life, but those basic elements remain who we are.
Well, you're going to be shocked at this, but we have a minute left. And we knew that it would go by fast. Any advice to actors who are wondering how to find their niche, or?
I would just say that we take who we are for granted because it's just given to us. And yet our identity, how other people relate to us, and how we relate to that inner flow of identity is the secret weapon. Skills are expected, you have to work on them, you have to get to be a good actor. But this gift of who we are is as big an asset as our skills and talents. And if we can get immersed in the interactivity of our identity, we then have balanced the scale of what we have to offer and what people want to hire.
Now, what about the marketing skills for that? We didn't even touch on that really, but the marketing, yes. So the marketing skills for in order to get into that audition room, how do you do that?
Well, it's then how do you capture that identity in a photograph? And one of the things that happens with the people that I work with is that the way they look at things like a photograph or the design of a resume or what goes up on their YouTube or MySpace or their Reels, all of that stuff alters because the focus becomes not, do I look good? Do they think I can act? The focus becomes, are these unique elements of my personality captured in this photo or in the design of the resume? And then all those marketing packaging issues become different, all the things that you write so well about in your book, when they're influenced by identity change.
Well, I'm getting the wind-up sign. We're going to keep talking. The sound will stay up, so stay with us for this last seconds. But thank you so much for watching, and please watch again. And thank you, Sam, for
it's
being
been a pleasure.
I
always have fun with you.
I know, it's great. And so and of course, everyone has to have a demo reel now.
Yeah, has to.
You have to. Now, are you a fan of shooting your own stuff if you don't have?
Yeah, now.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. The whole YouTube, MySpace thing has changed the world.
Yes.
And ever since I've been in show business, there has not been this huge an opportunity for, because literally an agent will say to me, somebody's disc, somebody's DVD will sit on my desk for a month or two before I get to it. On the other hand, I get a link on my computer of their MySpace thing and I'll go right away. And that is a giant opportunity. Plus, the way that YouTube is constructed, we don't expect it to be full-on clips from TV shows. We expect it to be amateurized. And so now all of a sudden there's a lot more space and permission for people to just shoot stuff that captures who they are.